Hello and welcome to Retail Innovation Week. Now in its third year, Retail Innovation Week brings together business leaders, change makers, practitioners to engage in a week of conversation around the future of retail. My name's Piers Fox, I'm the host for the day, and we're here to discuss the future of the store and what to do with all that real estate and how we define real-world consumer experience. Before we jump into that, let me just tell you about how the day is going to unfold. Over the next 2 hours, we're going to bring in experts at retailers and brands to help us understand the change that's taking place when it comes to store experience. And then we're going to transition into breakout sessions where we're going to have solution providers really help us understand how to activate strategies when it comes to store experience and talk about some of their case studies. Everything that we do at PSFK and for Retail Innovation Week is directed and channeled through research. The speakers we have on stage, the themes that we have chosen are led through research. I'm going to bring on my colleague Scott Latchert, who is partner and runs strategy and research at PSFK, to talk about the research that he did when it comes to the future of retail and help us understand how that research directed the themes of today. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Piers. How's it going? Very good to be here.
Today we're going to talk about the role of the store. Can you talk about some of the themes that you think we'll see discussed by the speakers during the session today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so much has been said about the store for years and years now. Obviously, its role has continued to evolve, and there was a huge disruption that happened over the past 10 months or so in terms of, seeing what the shutdown and how that impacted everything. And so as we come out of that, I think the store still has a very important role to play in that broader customer journey. I think one of the big things that we're seeing is that from an operational point of view, particularly within an omnichannel commerce landscape where we have most consumers using digital in some way, shape, or form for the way that they're shopping today, whether that's digital only or as a part of that sort of move into stores, that the operational role that stores play is going to be huge. We've already seen that in terms of the sort of treatment of stores as a core piece of that sort of supply chain or distribution center. So the rise of buy online, pick up in store, the shift to curbside delivery, and then ultimately how that has moved from the store being used as a sort of warehouse almost as part of that sort of larger, again, sort of omni-channel strategy. What that means is then what happens within the context of the physical store also changes. Perhaps a larger portion of that store is dedicated to some of these operational aspects, and so the sales floor might shrink as a result of that. So heavy on sort of the high-performing merchandise that sits up front, big on discovery as a way for consumers to really sort of see and touch and feel what's the products that they're there to test out. Education plays a huge role within the context of the store. And then, of course, expertise with that sort of one-to-one connection that you can create with members of staff. When we talk about staff as well, we see the role that technology plays in them performing their jobs better, whether that's basic tasks within the context of the store or having access to information about things that are product information, inventory availability, transactional aspects, all of those things being at their fingertips. And then certainly how consumers use technology within the context of that physical store journey. A lot of that's being driven by mobile phones, but certainly interactive technology, whether that's kiosks or even potentially voice in a contactless world, how that all plays a role as well. So I think it's really exciting to see that sort of continued evolution of stores and the critical role that they will continue to play.
So, having listened to Scott just then, let's have a deep dive and look through the speaker list for today. On this second day of the Retail Innovation Week conference, we will explore the role of the store in a time when accelerated change has altered shopping habits and consumer needs. The PSFK stage includes pioneers working in brands and retailers to help shape the future of retail. Here are some of the experts to listen out for today. Rachel Shechtman is a retail entrepreneur and founder of Story, a concept store known for its editorial and ever-changing approach to retail that was acquired by Macy's in 2018. We'll be asking what are the key components that lead to success or failure in the department store space and within the greater retail landscape. Dave Glazer is the SVP of Product and Merchant Development at Mastercard. He is responsible for developing contactless payments, tap to pay, QR code transactions, and more. We are going to be chatting to him about how the role of the store is changing and how payments will adapt. Shian-Li Tsang is the head of retail marketing for the Americas at Lego Group, where she oversees an omnichannel retail footprint that serves the dual role of brand builder and commercial driver. We are going to talk to her about the role of the store and how she sees the digital and physical channels work together to enhance the customer experience. Ron Thurston loves retail, and he's proud of it. Ron has led retail teams for some of America's most prominent brands, including Apple, Bonobos, and now Intermix, where he is VP of Stores. Ron will be joining us to talk about the themes in his latest book, Retail Pride. It's an indispensable guide for every retail employee, manager, and multi-store leader looking to accelerate their potential. Dennis Crowley is the co-founder and executive chairman of Foursquare, overseeing the strategic vision and product roadmap of Foursquare's technology platform. We will be talking to Dennis about Marsbot, a location-based recommendation engine, and the role of voice, audio, and hearables as an emerging customer interface. Albert Vita is the director of in-store experience for the Home Depot and leads strategy development and store innovation for the Home Depot's 1,800-plus U.S. locations. Albert spearheaded several of Home Depot's most groundbreaking store experiences, including their Store of the Future pilot and the Home Depot Design Center that dramatically reimagined kitchen, bath, and flooring remodeling. Jason Williams is the VP of Athlete Technology at Dick's Sporting Goods, responsible for the company's software application design and development. He will be speaking on multiple days of the conference, but on day 2, he will be discussing what the keys are to creating a successful omnichannel customer experience. Ben Kaufman is the founder and CEO of Camp, what he calls a family experience company that he launched in 2018. Prior to founding Camp, Ben was the chief marketing officer at BuzzFeed. Ben will speak across a couple of days at the conference, and on day 2 we are going to be chatting about the importance of real-world retail in 2021. Catherine Pike is currently the Senior Director of Retail at Vuori, the SoCal-inspired activewear brand. She is launching and overseeing the brand's retail network. We will be chatting with Catherine about a number of interesting things Vuori has done during the pandemic, including the redeployment of retail employees and delivery of new training programs that will improve operations across Vuori's brick and mortar locations in the post-pandemic world. During the breakouts, listen in on talks with Prexa Graves from Nestle Starbucks, and Sarah Hill from Target's Accelerator Group, and Kathy Sordener from Riot Games, and Michael Robinson from packaging startup Invisible. As you can see, Retail Innovation Week brings together business leaders, change agents, and practitioners to engage in a week of conversation and debate about the future of retail. Okay, that's great. Let's get this show started. One of the persons who's really kind of popped into my radar is Ron Thurston. Ron loves retail. Ron, he's proud of it. He's proud of it so much that he's written a book called Retail Pride, which is a handbook for everybody who works in retail, whether you work in corporate or whether you work on the store floor. And I thought, let's spend some time with him today to understand some of the themes that are within his book. Hey, Ron, great to have you.
Thank you, Pierre. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome to Retail Innovation Week. It's an interesting time to write about stores, considering that so many are either closed or quiet right now. Interesting timing, no?
Interesting timing, although very kind of long in its works. So the goal was always October 2020. It just happened to be after one of our most challenging years. As I'm sure many people will speak about this year. But I've been working in retail in the field, specifically leading teams, running stores, working in sales for nearly 3 decades. And as you hear people's stories and you hear about their love of this industry and their passion for leading their teams and their customers and the product and the brands that they work for, there's an incredible amount of pride that sits out in the field that I think is actually often unrecognized. And as I worked in the industry and you several years ago started to hear this kind of retail apocalypse terms, I actually became quite almost defensive of my industry. And people would say, oh, you work in retail, that must be really tough. Actually, no, we love it. We love what we do. We're just working harder and working differently. So the idea of retail pride was, let's take all of this kind of work and energy and leadership and put it all into this book that really celebrates our industry and the people that work in it, and to be proud of it, because I think it's actually very unrecognized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as you looked across the industry, there's some sort of fundamentals that have always existed that we can take and apply today, tomorrow, that's going to help us with our success?
Yeah, I write in the book I talk about there's 3 pillars of retail success, and the pillars are really meant to be any industry, any role. I think they're not specific to one part of retail. So I talk about empathy, curiosity, and focus. And the idea of empathy is really, no matter what your role is in the store, your really purpose often is to exude empathy to everyone around you, and specifically your customer. And your ability to listen, your ability to understand what they're going through, what do they need, why are they there, how are you kind of putting yourself in the customer's shoes, which a website can't do. So there's an immediate level of empathy that happens. And then the curiosity kicks in of how curious are you about the brand that you work for, the product, the history of our industry, your customer, your team. The list goes on of the more curious you are, the better you become at your job, the more curious you are about everything around you. And you actually become a better salesperson, a better leader, a better conversationalist, because you've spent time being curious. And focus is a word that I think anyone that works in stores or leads stores can understand, because every day something's coming at you. There's some shipment coming in the back door, visual directives, someone calls out on their shift. There's an enormous amount of things that can throw you off of your game. And so if I'm highly empathetic, I'm curious about what's happening around me, and I'm asking great questions, and I'm focused on what I need to accomplish. Those, in kind of working side by side, can actually kind of set people up for success in this industry, and I think actually many others. And they can sound simple, but I've received so much feedback of that makes sense. That's exactly what I've been trying to say. And so that is, it's been a great part of the book.
You talked about kind of leaders. There's some specific skills that they should be embracing or training for today.
Yeah. I'll give you a couple that I've written about. One is an optimistic attitude, and when you think about the leaders that you either have worked for that you really have enjoyed, leaders that you follow, leaders that you that you read about, listen to, they often have a very optimistic attitude. And it's not in lieu of not understanding what's happening today, because we need to be fully aware of how our business operates. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't come with a level of optimism of, if I'm empathetic and I'm curious, it actually can create great optimism. So I put it kind of number one of leadership basics is an optimistic attitude. One of the others that I really speak so highly about is let everyone know where you stand, and that what's important for you, what's important for the company, where do you sit in the scheme of success, what is deemed success, and that you're fully transparent about what's going on. And the other one that I would just reference, which is where I start the book, is how do you make everyone around you feel important? And regardless of role, I talk kind of about my inspiration with my grandfather, who ran a big construction company. He made everyone around him feel important, whether you are part-time, hitting nails into a construction site, a leader, the CFO, everyone in the organization felt important to him. And I think that's a very important pillar of just retail leadership success.
Yeah. It's interesting how you make those connections between different sectors and still see those truths. I mean, there's the sort of the feeling, or the kind of the emotional feeling within an organization, some of those strategies. But are there any other strategies that can be used to kind of improve, that the organization can improve to allow the sales associates and the frontline staff to thrive?
I would go back kind of a bit to what I just said, because when you think about the sales roles specifically in stores, we have operated brick and mortar retail in a very traditional pyramid of GM, store director, store manager, whatever you want to call it. At the top, I have an assistant store manager, I have an ops manager, I have a visual person, I have a sales team, I have an ops team. There's a very traditional structure. And what I firmly believe today, and what will become even more important, is the person at the top of the chain, at the top of the pyramid, is the sales associate. It's anyone that is face to face with a customer today and speaking about your brand, is in control of the experience of what's happening, is probably the most memorable, it is the most memorable part of your brand experience, is that person that is face to face with the customer. And I really do put such a significant importance on that role, and whatever the compensation program is, commission, non-commission, whatever that is, may not even be about compensation. It's about making them feel important, celebrating what's culturally important, and letting everyone know, like, you are the most important person in this chain, from conception of store design, product design, real estate, all of this work and all of these millions of dollars that goes in. The whole thing can actually fall apart with the wrong salesperson that is engaged with the customers. I completely turned it upside down and said, well, let's spend less on something else and spend more on getting the best salespeople in the industry. I would just encourage everyone to not diminish the pride that's happening in stores, even when business is tough, and that they are working to the best of their ability. They are very happy to be here. And that often, those of us that sit in offices and aren't in stores every day, don't forget that everyone that's out in the field and engaging with store teams, when they can act in a way that, behaviorally like they used to, they love what they do and celebrate them. And that's where your business happens. It's where the best of your brand happens, is in stores. And don't forget that they are the most important people in your company.
That's great. So if you want to know how to make the best of your brand come to life, I'd recommend that you buy Ron Thurston's book, Retail Pride, at your best marketplace, your best bookstore. Ron, thank you so much for sharing. can't run Retail Innovation Week without the support of partners who we truly appreciate. We wouldn't be here today. Let's have a look at some of the partners that are supporting us today.
That's right, Piers. We couldn't have pulled this event off without the support of our sponsors. First, we have Avalara, the leader in automated tax compliance. We've done a lot of work with Avalara over the past 12 months, and it continues the launch of a new report we are unveiling on day 4 of Retail Innovation Week. It is called Marketplaces and the Next Generation Digital Experience, Developing an Omnichannel Marketplace Strategy. The report was the inspiration for our Marketplace Day, and we hope you download your free copy. We'd also like to thank Gladly for their support. Gladly is the only people-centered customer service platform with all the channel built in. We also want to give a shout-out to our breakout sponsors. Chase Design is a world-class design firm established more than 50 years ago with over 100 employees. They work with consumer product goods companies and retailers worldwide on projects that span all shopper touchpoints, in the home, on the go, in-store, and online. Our sponsors. At Real Obsess and Ridding Futures ran a session on Monday that tackled how to make the in-store experience available anywhere with AR and VR. Between them, they bring to the table technology, insights, augmented retail, and virtual shopping. We are also supported by Life Area, a full-service global customer experience and commerce agency. Their expertise lies in connecting brands and people through creative commerce experiences that transform and enliven the customer journey from start to finish. Much of what you will see on days 3 and 4 was filmed with our partner, Norbert. Norbert is a turnkey, all-in-one hardware and software solution you can deploy in hours. Thanks again to all of our sponsors for their support. Back over to you, Piers.
So let's turn now to a retailer that's actually investing in stores, investing in real-world experiences. We have Catherine Pike. She's the Senior Director of Retail at Vuori, a performance apparel brand. Before that, Catherine worked on the Lululemon team, investing in the strategies that led to a lot of growth within the US. And I'm excited to talk to her about the strategies that they're employing now at Vuori to engage customers and drive sales. Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
Great to have you here on Retail Innovation Week.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
For a lot of our audience, it might be a new brand for them. Perhaps you can just give us a little context about that brand.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a new take on performance apparel. So, ultimate versatility. I love how our products, you can really wear them from everything from work to home to work from home, great workout, run with your kids on the beach, ultimate comfort, just incredible fabrics, and really a new look and a new feel for performance apparel.
Interestingly, there's a lot of investment in retail, as I said at the start. What's motivating that?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to the early days of just our founder and CEO and the founding team believing in human connection and people wanting to be together. They opened their first store in Encinitas, and I think it was obviously a place to sell the product, but more than that, it was after hours. It was where they held art shows and fitness classes and gathered together when book speakers came into town, and just it really became a place for like-minded people who loved the brand to have a space to gather in. So that's really the foundation of it. That's where our first store started, and we really stay true to that as we open our new stores in new markets.
Can you help me understand the sort of ambition Vuori has over the next 12, 24 months in terms of stores?
We are expanding. We're really looking at, right now is an interesting time to look at real estate opportunities because there aren't, a ton of other people out there looking for new spots. But we're really finding that if we find the right community and the right market and the right deals, it's actually a wonderful time for us to be getting great spaces. And we really go in with that original intention, which is to be people first, recruit awesome team members, get them out there connecting with the community. And then, hopefully soon have the stores will be back to gathering people and bringing them in a less distanced, line-based fashion.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about the employment of technology and how technology supports the store associates or supports that human experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that technology is hugely important right now. We're very focused on making a seamless experience between online and in our stores, and actually using technology so that our associates can have all the information they need to give you that best experience in person. So when they're armed with, the information about what you've purchased, what sizes you've gotten, what colors you like, what you've returned that you didn't like, they can go into a conversation with you, and we're 10 steps ahead because technology has helped us get there. And we can give you that much better of an experience with that knowledge base. So really, we look at our stores and our seamless technology between online and in-store as a way of elevating the customer experience, so that it doesn't matter where you're shopping with us. We can give you the best knowledge, the best experience there.
Retailers, brands, and ecosystem partners in the audience are thinking, okay, well, we need to make investments like this. Do you have any advice about where to start? I mean, obviously there's 1,000 solution providers and technology tools. Is there some sort of guiding light or guiding principle about where you bring in technology into and where you don't?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to start by bringing all the key stakeholders in the organization together, because you think it may just involve a couple departments, but in reality, it touches everything. And if you don't have their voices and their perspective in the room, you may miss something, and you may actually take yourself down a path, and then you've got a hole because you weren't paying attention to something that was going to become critical in the future. So I'd say that's definitely the starting place, is make sure you really have representation from anyone who could feasibly in the future need to be involved or could give perspective. And then I'd say the second thing is just really coming back and asking, what is the customer experience? We want things convenient for our team, but they also have to be seamless for the customer. And when you're looking at those solutions, that really is what makes the difference. Is it going to make what we're trying to do easier to happen?
I'd love to talk a little bit about something that happened over the last few months, where the Vuori and the team invested in the store associates. The store associates didn't have much to do. Maybe you were closing the stores, or the stores were mothballed or something. I'd love to talk about how you reacted to change and re-employed that staff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were in the same boat that all retailers were. Really unknown future. We had just closed all of our stores. We were hopeful it would not be too long, but we had no idea. And I think from a leadership perspective, our CEO and founder said, first and foremost, our goal is to keep our people together, keep our team together. So that set the tone for me, personally, to be really determined and really creative with how we could still contribute and add value. And we saw that, although our stores were closed, online was on fire. And so our marketing team was so busy. Our customer service team was having to flex into new roles of actually having to shop online and help people in a more proactive way, because people were reaching out to them to ask questions. And so we started by cross-training and redeploying all of our retail staff into value add roles and skills that they could do within those two departments. And it kind of evolved from there. We started to say, okay, well, the shutdown's lasting longer. What else would we want a retail associate to know about, so that when we do open, they're going to come back to the floor with a whole new skill set and set of knowledge? So we created a full training program where they actually spent hours a day learning about the design process, the product process. We looked at brand, our creative director worked with them, our CFO talked to them. So they really got essentially a crash course in all of these HQ departments. And we said, we know that by writing this training now, we're going to have associates who come back on the floor with so much more confidence and knowledge that they're going to bring to that customer experience. And it's absolutely worked. It's been a huge success. And we actually created a new role because of it. Yeah. So we found that, in retail, you obviously have flex of when you're busy and when you're not, and customer service does as well. And if you have people that are trained, and so our title is called Omni Associates, to flex back and forth between those two departments. We've found that that role has added huge value both in the customer service world and the retail world. It's enabled us to attract new and different talent, really. It's a great recruiting tool. It opens upward mobility for people who take those roles, into multiple departments. And, most importantly, these people can help our customers in new and different ways because of that increased skill set. So we started with a couple Omni associates per store, and we're actually looking to increase it to about 50% of our full-time staff.
Catherine Pike, Senior Director of Retail at Vuori. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Need to remind you about this chat box that's to my left. Feel free to engage one another. Feel free to respond to some of the different themes and comments that the PSFK and Retail Innovation Week teams have been adding. And also, comms teams, assistants, and even the speakers themselves have been adding content, are waiting for your questions. So don't be afraid, just jump in now and ask a question. The first person I thought of when I thought about this list was Rachel Shechtman. I think many of you will remember Story, and you may have seen Rachel on our stage before. And Rachel is the founder of Story, and she's been a great pioneer in terms of rethinking what is retail, what is the retail experience, and how it works. And she was so successful that the Story concept was eventually bought up by Macy's. We're excited to have Rachel today to talk about her experience as Story and what lessons she can take from that time and apply it, and help us think about how we can apply those lessons going forward. Hey, Rachel.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. I know that some folks in the audience are familiar with you and the Story concept, but of course it was fairly US focused. Maybe we can just spend a moment just talking about what the Story concept was and reminding folks.
Sure. So the concept of Story was a space that had the point of view of a magazine. Then we reinvented it entirely every 1 to 2 months like a gallery, and we sold things like a store. And really, this was back in 2011, where experiential retail wasn't even really a term, but it was kind of looking at how can we adapt and react and embrace new business models and consumer behavior that was coming out of all of these different startups that were direct to consumer. How could we reimagine physical retail? So it was really looking at retail as a media channel. And really what I mean by that is, magazines tell stories by writing articles and taking pictures, and we told stories through merchandise curation and event programming. But we also had a second revenue stream, which was quite unique at the time, and that was sponsorship. So we kind of thought, well, magazines have advertisers, why can't we have sponsors? And those sponsors became part of the content. So we would have like Cigna sponsor our feel-good story all about health and wellness, or Target sponsored Home for the Holidays story. So it was like an immersive, rotating, living magazine.
Were there any truths, any kind of big learnings that happened at that time which are constant, which can be applied at any time, can be applied in our current context?
I think one of the biggest things that I thought about way back when I started Story, and I continue to think about daily now, is when you think about, retail store experience, are you giving the customers something they can't get on their couch? Like if I go into a store and there's an iPad with a website, well, thank you, but I can do that on my phone absolutely anywhere. So really asking yourself the question, what am I doing in store that the customer cannot replicate on their phone or on their couch while they're sitting at home? I think that's it's simple, but I think it's imperative, because it's shocking to me how many stores have redundancies in them. And I think consumers now more than ever just, they don't have the patience for it.
One of the last activations that you ran was, I think, a store in Dallas, or yes, I wonder. I think where you kind of brought all of your knowledge and your capabilities to bear. I wondered whether you can take us through what you did there and what you learned.
The concept was called The Market by Macy's. I worked with an amazing team. And the task at hand was, how do we take the best of Macy's and pull it in a smaller format store and reimagine it with different brands and services in a local format. So it was a 20,000 square foot store in South Lake, Texas. And before I really get into the store details, one interesting insight I thought that could be worth sharing was kind of part of the methodology and the approach that the team took to build it. And one of the things was, here we are, a bunch of New Yorkers saying, oh, we're going to open up a community-centric store in South Lake, Texas, right? Oh, here we are, we're big Macy's. We're going to be, small and unique and welcoming in this community-centric environment. But no, we were a big company. I know nothing about South Lake, Texas. So me and the team started spending a lot of time there before kind of breaking ground on construction. And we kind of thought to ourselves, what are things we want the experience to evoke? And a lot of the words were around hospitality and feeling like you're in someone's home. So before we even started work there, I found an Airbnb and I reached out to the owner and I said, hey, I'm looking to meet different people in the community for this new business. And instead of going to a restaurant, I'd like to host them at the house. So can I host a little party here? And I thought, what you put out is what you get back. So if we embraced a lot of those emotions and tactics that we wanted consumers to feel when they came in our store as we were building the business, was really our thought process. So we had the editor-in-chief of one of the biggest magazines in Dallas there. We had designers, we had all different type of food critics, we had all different type of people come by this Airbnb, and we hosted it like it was our home. And that's really how we built the business. Before we opened up the store, we had the mayor and neighbors come to do our beer and wine tasting, so that the beer and wine list in the cafe was chosen by the community, not from these New Yorkers who thought they had all the answers. So I just mentioned that anecdote because you can see pictures of products on a wall or things listed on a menu, but how they got there and why they were the way they were, I think really contributed to the successful launch of it. I mean, unfortunately, it was just weeks before the shutdown in February that we opened. So the store that we conceived and birthed and that I fully believed in exists in a different form now. It's not what we launched. So, that saddens me a little bit, but it was pretty remarkable. And also one last thing that I'll add is really playing with merchandise adjacencies, is taking Ralph Lauren, who has very specific, brand guidelines, and putting them, adjacent to direct-to-consumer brands like Bombas or independent local brands, and really reimagining that and seeing how it's interesting to see how sales velocity evolves and changes when you play with those physical adjacencies.
And you seem to be respecting the brands as well. You're just kind of clashing them together, making unexpected connections, I guess.
Yeah, I always say unlikely bedfellows. I mean, we launched a beauty concept in there that was quite unique for a company like Macy's. It was called Getchell's, and it was inspired by Margaret Getchell, who was the first woman to work in retail in the 1800s, and she worked at Macy's. But the idea behind Getchell's was beauty's tried and true mixed with what's new, and we would not carry all of Estee Lauder. It was like if the Allure Best in Beauty Awards came to life. So we would have one product from Lauder, Advanced Night Repair, next to Vintner's Daughter, which is a cult classic that people, crave for. That's an amazing independent brand from the West Coast. So it was also really changing merchandise norms and really seeing, sales pick up as a result of that.
There's a lot of question marks over the future of the store, future of real estate. There's been accelerated change, and obviously we are not through the woods when it comes to the current situation, current context in terms of the pandemic. Do you see a future of the store, and what would its role be?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll never hear me bet against a store. It's just we have to evolve with the store. Saying to ourselves, like, what if like psychology and improv had a baby and it was a new type of training for store associates? And I think, we have AI learning and we have bots and we train customer service people online, but we haven't evolved how people engage in a physical environment. So I think that's one of the biggest, it's not sexy, but I think it's a huge opportunity to really reimagine the role of people in stores.
Well, on that point, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Always get inspired by these conversations. Thank you, Rachel Shechtman, founder of Story.
So obviously within the context of digital commerce and in general, mobile is a hugely important component of how the consumer is sort of interacting and engaging with brands. Things like context and location are hugely important. And then thinking further ahead, new interfaces like voice and hearables are also starting to play a role. And so really excited to have Dennis Crowley here, who is the co-founder and executive chairman of Foursquare, to talk to us a little bit about what they have been doing within the space recently and how that might impact what brands do moving forward. So Dennis, thanks so much for joining us here at Retail Innovation Week.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So you guys have recently launched the MarsBot product, which is sort of leaning into voice. It's moving away from, I guess, like more of an active role from the consumer and more into more of an ambient sort of passer user experience. Maybe you can just start by talking a little bit about that product and how you see voice, audio, hearables kind of playing a role in the way consumers sort of interact moving forward.
Even going back to like the really early days of Foursquare, like in 2009, 10, 12 years ago, in our early pitch decks, we've always, we wanted to kind of make these pieces of software that were, contextually aware and proactive, like things that would kind of reach out and touch you in a given moment to tell you like, oh, go inside this store, or a friend is around the corner, or, look left, there's something interesting you need to see. And, when we started, like the iPhone just came out and we were kind of pushing at the boundaries of what you could do with a lot of that. And I think over time, you've seen a lot of the Foursquare technology, evolve around this idea of smart notifications at just the right time, being able to understand what you might like based on the places that you've been. And so, this MarsBot product, MarsBot is a character that we've used, in the Foursquare ecosystem for years. But, this MarsBot for AirPods product that we made is really kind of this manifestation of like, what if you made something that was kind of like Alexa or kind of like, Siri or Google Assistant, but you didn't have to summon it. Right? Like right now with these assistants, you have to like rub the magic lamp and say, hey Siri or hey Google or whatever, in order to get them to pop out and help you. But what if we made something that was the thing tapping you on the shoulder saying, hey, I hate to interrupt your walk, but let me tell you about this awesome falafel place you just passed. Or like, I know you're trying to get to the, I know you're trying to get to this place, but let me tell you that a buddy of yours is around the corner right now. So that's what we were working on. And, we kind of looked at it like through the lens of, everyone's excited about augmented reality and this idea that like, things are visually going to pop in front of you, either like virtual Pokemon characters or an arrow pointing this way or, whatever the things happen to be. And I think we're still a little bit of I'm very excited about that space and that vision, but I think we're like a long ways off from that. Like, I don't know anyone that wears augmented reality hardware outside, not ones that allow you to see things, but like, can you think of headphones as kind of like poor man's augmented reality? Like, can it do the same thing that visual AR would do, but just do it with audio? And I think that was kind of a big idea that we hit on last year, and it's really kind of fueled a lot of the way that we think about this stuff and a lot of the things that we've built into that MarsBot for AirPods product.
And so from a sort of user point of view, what's that sort of experience look like for someone who's, has that activated and is walking around New York City, let's say?
Yeah. It's I should have mentioned this earlier, but it's an app you can download from the Apple iTunes App Store, whatever it's called. It's only available on iPhone. We didn't build an Android version yet. But really, it's an app that you don't have to use, that you're not supposed to use. Like, really, you put the AirPods in and it gives you a chime. Like, in addition to the, AirPods makes a chime to say like, oh, I'm on. We have a chime that plays after that saying, oh, MarsBot is activated. And then just as you walk around, you start hearing messages about, this is the best coffee shop in the East Village. Oh, your buddy Alex went here 2 days ago. Oh, this restaurant just opened up. Maybe it's something you want to try. We built in the ability for people to record their own messages, like record their own voice and kind of leave that as a nugget. So when you step on top of it, like, it could be, oh, this is, you hear the voice of a friend. Hey, look up here and you'll see a really cool piece of art on the ceiling. And it like creates these really weird, like serendipitous moments, right? Especially when you combine it, like if you're listening to music, we built it so like it doesn't pause the music, it just kind of lowers the volume and you hear the voice talk over it. So sometimes it almost like it matches the beat. It's really interesting. But like, we built it as a playground, right? As a playground for how do you turn New York City into like an audio geofences environment where anyone can make anything that they want. And the only thing you have to do to get it to work is just put an AirPod in and walk around. And like, it works pretty good. Like, this is like the absolute wrong time in the world to be launching a thing that's encouraging people to walk around aimlessly and discover things. But like, we're very hopeful that when things go back to normal-ish, that like it'll be a super fun platform to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also do think there is something nice about, as people kind of like rediscover their cities in this sort of new world that we're living in, how important that will be to kind of like, reintroduce them in some ways. Obviously we're speaking to an audience right now of retailers and brands and agencies, and I'd be remiss to not sort of think about what are the ways that this platform can sort of create new opportunities for people to play around with.
Yeah, I think it's, you just think of different forms of content. Like, one of the things that we baked into MarsBot for AirPods just before we launched it is this ability to play a jingle every time you walk by a McDonald's. And I don't mean like, oh, we picked 5 McDonald's in New York. I mean, like, we went in the database and said, take every McDonald's in the world and put a geofence around it and make it so the McDonald's jingle plays the moment that you walk by a McDonald's. And, if you're just walking down the street, you hear it, right? I had to change the jingle because we didn't have the copyright. So it's just me whistling something, but it's still equally effective and weird. But, just like a nugget of audio, almost like a poor man's ringtone, right? Like as an ad unit, right? Or as a reminder or as an encouragement to go somewhere, right? It's just different, right? And sometimes like the most interesting stuff comes out of, I think, media platforms that are slightly different, right? How do people turn tweets into advertisements over time? How do people turn Instagram posts into ads? Like, of course, we all understand that. But how do people turn little audio nuggets, little sound cues, little things that are only supposed to last 3 seconds and can be played on top of another clip of audio? And I'm excited to see what people will do with the platform and in which ways they can push it. Like, some of the cooler stuff I've played with is, you wear a camera on your glasses, which real people don't really do. But, then I look around the store and it can identify the objects for me in the store. Like, in order for a lot of those image classifier tools to work, like in that context, it needs to know, like, okay, I need the image classifier library for the butcher shop. I need the image classifier library for the, for the supermarket, for the bread aisle, right? Like, so, like, everything starts from like where I am, right? And once you can solve that core issue, then you can start building services on top of it. But a lot of like the really most like interesting and intriguing of these like science fiction-y augmented reality virtual assistant use cases, like we're almost there, but like it's you have to have 100% accuracy and like, okay, well, where I am right now, what am I doing at this moment, right? And that's that's what we're still trying to help people solve, because it's not a solved problem.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see where you guys sort of head in 2021. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today, and good luck with everything. Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah, super fun conversation. Thanks for having me.
So, big box retail seems to be one of the places where we've seen the most innovation and experimentation over the last 12 months. It's a place where the stores have remained open and have had to adapt. And when we were putting together the conference and we talked about the research themes, I put a name at the top of the list as somebody I want to have speak. And so I invited Albert Vita, who is Director of In-Store Experience at the Home Depot, to come along and talk about the approaches he's been taking over a number of years when it comes to store experience and how he may be adapting that going forward. Albert, great to have you here at Retail Innovation Week.
Pierce, thank you for having me. And may I also wish you and everyone watching a happy and healthy new year.
Thank you so much. We're excited to have you here. Let's start with this one. You know, Home Depot recently changed its tagline to "How Doers Get More Done." Why was that why's that significant in terms of the rethinking of the stores?
It's a great question, and Pierce, the first thought would be, what's the big deal about updating your retail tagline, right? Our old one was more saving, more doing, and now we've shifted it to how doers get more done. So if you think about Home Depot and its customer base and its 41-year history, Home Depot customers are doers. They like to get their hands dirty and build stuff, right? And back in 2017, Pierce, we introduced our strategic plan to how are we going to create a seamless, more convenient experience across our stores and online. And we actually called this plan One Home Depot. And so since 2017, Pierce, we've made tremendous progress. And we actually believe that the time was right to showcase these capabilities, right? And so the important thing for us was, how are we going to change our tagline to match today's Home Depot? And so we start thinking about some of the capabilities that have been updated. Things like the use of mobile inside our stores. Obviously, mobile app inside a physical store is nothing new, but the capabilities that we've added to the mobile app are nothing short than mind-blowing. This idea of product location. Pierce, the reality is, within our big box and within the Home Depot store experience, wayfinding is still our biggest problem. Our customers being able to find the specific nut or bolt or light bulb in a 100,000 square foot big box it's an old problem, Pierce, but it's still our number one friction.
I'm sure there's a few of us nodding our heads here. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so being able to use the mobile app in terms of product location, image search, so those are some of the things that we really wanted to call out. In addition to the mobile app, we've also updated the ways how our customers can pick up their orders. So obviously, we'll get to curbside pickup in just a little bit, but certainly we start talking about BOPIS and in-store pickup lockers and really leaning into that. There are certainly some of the trends that we're seeing. And obviously, some of the investments that we've been making into our supply chain, enabling same-day delivery, some of that last mile delivery, it's some of those capabilities that Home Depot has invested heavily into are really go into and part of the DNA of the new tagline. So on the outset, more switching from more saving, more doing to how doers get more done. It's It's a subtle shift potentially, but for us, it was significant in terms of how are we going to showcase the new capabilities of Home Depot.
You talked about some of the capabilities that are emerging. Was there anything that was accelerated because of the pandemic and the current moment? And how did you pivot, or what things did you have to think differently?
Yeah, because of the pandemic, right? Pierce, what a great question. So if you take a step back, right, and we look back in the calendar back to mid-March when the stay-at-home and the quarantine first started last year, there was a lot of unknowns and a lot of chaos. And I think it's really important to notate that the Home Depot actually had to navigate over 600 regulations in terms of making sure that we were able to stay open as an essential retailer. So now, as customers were quarantined and staying at home and spending less on some of the more discretionary items, we noticed that there was a lot of investment being made into the home now that you're there, spending more time. But at the end of the day, obviously, when we start thinking about how Home Depot had to pivot during the pandemic, two priorities really emerged, especially in the beginning. The first one was safety, and that hasn't changed, even to today. How are we going to keep our customers and our associates safe? And then certainly from an essential retailer perspective, how did we want to make sure that we maintain that status? And so, but your question was, how has Home Depot changed? And one point I really would like to make is the perspective on what has not changed. And so as we think about the turmoil and all of the transition from 2020, part of the perspective I like to bring is making sure that we focus on what hasn't changed. Our customers are valuing innovative products. Product is certainly king when it comes to home improvement shopping. And the innovative product really matters to our customers as well. Everyday low prices. Pricing still matters. And so how are we making sure that we're bringing the best prices and the best products to our customers? And then there's really a third component here, Pierce, which is around how-to, knowledgeable how-to. And again, how do we communicate, and what's that vehicle to get you the how-to, whether it's mobile or online or inside a store? At the end of the day, there are still some elements of that shopping experience, Pierce, that have not changed. And so those are some areas that I like to lean into as well.
We have executives in retail, executives at brands. We have plenty of change makers who work in the ecosystem around retail. As they think about their businesses in 2021, this year and beyond, are there some kind of guiding principles or some strategies that they should pursue to keep themselves relevant?
So the question is, how should retail leaders think, or what should they do to make sure that they stay relevant moving forward? Yeah. I love that question, and you start thinking about the knee-jerk reaction in terms of how do retailers stay relevant looking into the future. You start thinking about potentially talking about emerging technology, or again, looking at the competitive landscape. But Pierce, to answer your question, if there was really where I would start, and if I could talk, through the screen to my peers that might be watching your show here, is the one thing I'd recommend is making sure we gauge our mindset. Right? From a retail leadership perspective, my recommendation is that we gauge our mindset. And what I mean by that, Pierce, is really when you start talking about mindset, you could either be talking about a growth mindset or a fixed mindset, right? And my deep belief, Pierce, is that the output of a retail experience, of a store experience, never will outpace or never rise above the level or the quality of the mindset of the retail leaders that are leading that organization. So for example, are we truly thinking about our retail experience from a position of abundance, where we're thinking about how do we truly 10x innovate the experience, or is it scarcity, right? Where we start thinking about how do we protect what we have, right? And how do we keep things close to the vest? And so for me, and we start talking about mindset, one of the key components of mindset as well, right, and is the level of questions that the retail leader brings to their job and to that in-store experience or that retail experience. And what I mean by that is, Pierce, we both know that anyone watching this is looking for answers, looking for key takeaways that they can run with immediately. And I want to go on the record with you, Pierce, in saying that the real power is not necessarily in coming to the table with the answers, but focusing on the questions. Are we even focusing on the most powerful and the most relevant questions, right? Because ultimately, I just feel that, I'll give you an example, right? If we were going to have a discussion around, okay, Albert, how do we increase the use of mobile, inside our physical store environment? It's a good question. However, my feeling is that you're already coming at it assuming that mobile and that particular technology, is part of the solution. And I'm just saying that ultimately, and this shapes the mindset is being open to and being aware of what is the mindset that you're bringing to the job, as well as what are the underlying questions that the retailer is even trying to answer as they go to market. Ultimately, I feel when you start talking about retail innovation, Pierce, innovation when done correctly, to me, is a heroic act. It fundamentally is a heroic act because it takes courage to look at the status quo and to challenge it, right? So ultimately, I just feel like checking what is the level of your mindset as you bring it to the office or bring it to work, and then what are the fundamental or underlying questions that you are bringing to work as well. So those would be my recommendations. What a great question. You start talking about innovation traps. And Pierce, in full transparency, I wouldn't consider myself an innovation expert, but I am someone that has, for the past 7 years, lived in the trenches in terms of thinking about in-store experience, measuring innovation, and really trying to push the needle with a human-centered and customer-backed thinking. And so from an innovation trap perspective, there are really four innovation traps that I've just learned from my experience, and I'm happy to share them with you. The first one is what I would call the friction trap, Pierce. And what I mean by the friction trap is that retailers, in an effort to reduce friction, introduce experiences that might actually end up creating more friction, right? So, for example, hey, let's put a kiosk, into this situation, or let's introduce digital into this situation, right? And so, but the reality is that by doing those types of digital moves and making those types of moves, and if you're not really thinking them through carefully, you could actually increase the level of friction in the store. So that's trap number one. The number two is what I would call the associate experience trap, Pierce. And what I mean by that is that we both know that in this day and age, customer experience is the buzzword, and CX commonly gets the spotlight. But in my experience and a lot of my discussions with my peers, it's often the associate experience that really determines the success of that test or that innovation. Are we really thinking about how is the associate in the store using this tool or using this to sell the product in the store? So that is another trap that I've commonly seen. The third one is what I would like to call the over competition trap. And what I mean by that is that when it comes to customer experience, Pierce, we compete with everybody. And I'll give you an example. So if you're a grocer, a lot of the times you look at other grocery chains, as your primary, competition. If you're in apparel, right, you look at other apparel retailers as your primary competition. And what I mean by over competition is that, again, also related back to my point about mindset and making sure that we're approaching business with a truly broad mindset around when it comes to customer experience, we are competing with everybody. And the idea would be, is there a opportunity for learning? And really the fourth trap that that's coming to mind is what I would call the time trap, right? And so, Pierce, we talk a lot about time is money, right? And time is money. And so, but the reality in my experience is that's not true, right? And that time is actually the new currency, and in my opinion, more valuable in the sense that it's the most precious, non-renewable resource. So starting to think about, okay, as customers are engaging your brand and coming to your in-store experience, how are we thinking about speed, right? And how are we thinking about how do we actually help our customers find the right item for them at that right time? And again, starting to think about point of sale and payments and all of those things, and that really end-to-end journey, right, around time and speed. So for me, I just feel like there are certainly lots and lots of lessons that I've learned from working on Home Depot's pilot store initiative and some of the other in-store experiences that I've worked on for Home Depot. But those are some of the common ones that I'm happy to share.
That's great. I appreciate your candid sharing of some of those key learnings from your experience. Albert Vita, Director of In-Store Experience at the Home Depot, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for being part of Retail Innovation.
Thank you for having me, Pierce. Take care.
So our next speaker is Jason Williams. He's VP of Athlete Technology at Dick's Sporting Goods. Dick's has been exploring how to evolve the customer experience in-store and digitally using data and other techniques. And I wanted to talk to Jason about the strategies they're employing, how they've responded to the moment, and their ambitions going forward. Jason, welcome.
Thank you, Pierce. It's been great to be here. Really excited to be part of the Retail Innovation Week event this week.
That's great. It's great to have you here as well. So let's get started. I mean, it's been an interesting time for big box and large format retailers. Possibly, maybe you can also give a little context about what Dick's Sporting Goods is.
It set us in a different direction at the beginning of this year. So a number of our stores had to close for a period of time for safety purposes. So we had to really understand how we're going to offer our products to our athletes and really be able to, delight our athletes and provide them with the necessary products they were looking for. Our e-commerce business had been growing for over a number of years, and we had significant investments in that area. One of the specific things that we had, due to our strong technology foundations, we were able to pivot and work on our curbside contactless pickup process. So we were able to deliver that feature in a 48-hour period. So obviously, it took years to get to that place, but with all the work that we had done to set up our teams and our products and our services to be scalable and sustainable, we were able to pivot and ensure that we could delight our athletes and provide them with the products they were looking for.
It's super interesting. We hear this phrase, accelerated change, 5 years evolution. Within a large organization, what does that, how does that really feel? How did you obviously were thinking about some of these things and testing some of these things? How does an organization scramble so quickly?
Well, I think if we hadn't started our journey a few years ago, it would not have come to fruition. So a few years ago, we really shifted from a project-based mentality where we were these large project initiatives that we were really looking at. Was the project on time or was it within budget? And we shifted to a product hierarchy and a product mindset. So if you're familiar with domain-driven design, we establish these specific product teams by business domain. So an example of this would be a pricing team or a cart and checkout team. They're solely responsible for delivering value through fast feedback loops for continued investments in those specific areas. So we're not looking at a specific project to deliver, but we're looking for delivering value sooner, really understanding what the outcomes are, and then either working on those outcomes, sustaining and constantly delivering towards them, or pivoting to work on things that really add value to our customers and to our business.
Well, I think that's really useful, especially for some of the audience who are just trying to think, how do I even achieve some of this? You evolved, Dick's evolved their BOPIS, their curbsides.
BOPIS and curbside are here to stay. We're obviously, even since before the pandemic, we were actually leveraging a lot of our stores as mini fulfillment centers. So we deliver, it's fastest delivery to our customers because it's in the vicinity of where they live, so they get their product sooner. Today, we actually fulfill around 70% of our sales from our stores. With the pivot to curbside, even after we initially deployed it for our initial MVP, from a safe and healthy perspective, curbside penetration has been fantastic. It's been substantial. We've actually added some additional features there for proxy pickup, and I'm on my way to the store. We've enabled a feature called Save the Sale. So if it's not in your store that you've chosen, if we can find another local store, we'll alert you, and then we'll redirect that fulfillment to that store if you choose to. So we see this as a differentiator for us. We can establish fulfillment through our stores because we had already done that. We'll see that continue to grow. And really, we see e-commerce and the extension of our stores is just another channel for us, and we really want to embrace that full omni-channel experience.
There must be so many options as a VP of technology. Are there any kind of guiding principles about that help you decide which strategies to pursue, which tactics to pursue?
It's great from a business strategy perspective. We work very close with our stakeholders. So our product teams that we've initiated, work directly with our VPs or SVPs or EVPs to really understand what's their overall strategy, what's the end goal that they want to achieve, and then based on that, determine what are the strategic intents and the outcomes that we want to solve for. Based on that, we do discovery and framing to see what are the areas that we go back that we try to tackle first that is going to add the most value for our customer or for the business.
In terms of data, there must be a lot of data that's being gathered previously and even now, especially kind of as e-commerce sort of balances itself out. Can you talk to me a little bit about how the use of data and how that's driving both the business, the customer experience, maybe even the products that you carry?
Absolutely. We made a significant investment in data analytics, data products, data sciences around machine learning and AI. You see that with our personalization. You see that with our loyalty scorecard program. We have 20 million active users in our scorecard program. And all that goes with collecting all the data and the behavioral analysis and the clickstream data to understand, what are the buying behaviors of our customers, understand what their needs are, making sure we're offering the right assortment of products. It's something that we're going to continue to invest in. We've done it in the e-com space. We're doing it in the stores. And we think it's a key differentiator if you really want to understand what your athletes or your customers for another organization want and really want to leverage from your products and your brand.
Is there any investment in technology to support the store associates? Is there anything interesting?
Absolutely. So it's funny. We term, even though stores are our store technologies, it's termed as an athlete technology under my area, because if you help the teammate, in the end, you're going to help the athlete, right? Because they're going to be able to spend more time at the athlete. We're going to make their experience, the teammate in stores or in their DCs, more seamless, less friction. So we try to make that more productive. Through automation, through the products that we provide them, and in the end, it benefits the customer because they can spend more time in stores with the athlete.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jason. It's been fascinating to understand the business of and I truly appreciate the kind of insight in terms of just how you make change happen. Jason Williams, VP of Athlete Technology at Dick's Sporting Goods. Thank you.
Thank you, Piers.
So, as we think about the store experience, there are obviously many different elements to consider. One of the things we haven't spoken a lot about today is the transaction, the payment space, and when and where that happens. We've seen a lot of experimentation over the last few years, and obviously accelerated change has rapidly progressed some of the ideas that we were possibly playing with in the past. I wanted to explore the topics of payments, transactions, and I asked Dave Glazer, who's Senior Vice President of Global Acceptance Systems at Mastercard, to join me and spend a few minutes talking about the work that he's doing. Hey Dave, how are you doing?
Hey Pierce, I'm really well. Thanks for having me today.
That's great. So possibly just let's do some context setting, and maybe you can just tell me a little bit about your role and the things that you're thinking about specifically at Mastercard.
Sure. So I'm part of the global product organization that works with merchants and acquirers and financial technology companies all over the world to help them optimize the way they're accepting payments and the value-added services around payment acceptance. And so this has been a super interesting, to say the least, but also very exciting year for the payments space, as we've seen a number of innovations rise to meet some of the challenges that we face.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did some travel recently and went through an airport, which is a unique experience these days. And it was surprising to see some of the contactless payments and other payment technologies being employed. And we can dive into some of that in a second, but I'd love to hear, in terms of the merchants that you speak to, what are some of the kind of biggest challenges that you hear from those folks?
Some of the biggest challenges have come from retail this year, especially. And there's two sides to the coin. There's sort of the traditional physical retailers, and then the online retailers. When we think about physical, though, which is I think where we're headed, is that the challenge of folks either not coming in the store, right, and the folks wanting to take advantage of touch-free or contactless behaviors, right? And so that has really, forced a number of changes in the in-store with the in-store experiences for these retailers. And most of us have got to experience sort of the low-hanging fruit. What have retailers done to meet the demand? Well, they've done things like QR codes, right? So especially in the US now, we are just in the last 9 or 10 months, we've gotten used to scanning a QR code with our smartphone camera, which launches a website or an app on our phone. And then we interface, even though we may be physically present with the merchant, we're actually interfacing with their online systems. And so that's a new paradigm in our space, but one that more and more retailers have been forced to, embrace. And they've done that not just in the payment space, but in the ordering space, the check-in, the pickup, those types of other parts of their business as well.
Oh, that's interesting. So there's a kind of a greater trust and a greater willingness to kind of bring in partners, especially important solution providers like yourselves, and kind of integrate them into the system, into the solution, the retail experience.
Yeah, it's been fascinating. Some of the themes we've been working on with retailers over literally the last 10 years, one of have been truly accelerated just this year in the past 9-10 months. The biggest theme as it relates to retailers is this theme of omnichannel or omnicommerce, which is the idea that retailers had that they wanted to offer the best and most seamless and friction-free ways of interfacing with their consumers, no matter where their consumers were, whether they were online or in store or just traveling about their daily journeys, right? They were thinking about how do they simplify their systems, digitize their systems such that consumers could interact with those retailers. But some merchants were slow to adopt. Some of the physical merchants, while they had big department stores or big brand names in physical shops, they didn't necessarily have a web presence or a sophisticated digital suite of experiences that they could leverage. So they had to move quickly to create this omni experience. So if anything, 2021 has been the year of omnichannel.
If we think about the physical space, I mean, where are your bets in terms of the future of the store? What is the role of the store going forward?
We see the role of the store changing dramatically, right? I mean, So we see the role of the store as a call center, a pickup location, a check-in location, a browsing location, but also a place to walk in, experience, shop, and pay, right? And so while some things are dramatically changing, a lot will continue to be similar. We also see the store as a distribution channel. More, we see inventory being dispersed more through these stores. But I think from a payments perspective, there's and the unique role that payments providers play as partners with merchants and retailers. We have the opportunity to bring, I think, a lot of this digital technology to life to help them advance towards these goals of these changes. And there's a couple that are really interesting. One is the idea of contactless payments, right? And so around the world, contactless payments aren't new necessarily. So across Europe and Australia, other markets in Southeast Asia, we've been deploying contactless credit cards and terminals where you simply tap a card with a chip and pay and move on very rapidly through transit systems and restaurants and that sort of thing. But literally, it's just been in the last couple of years that technology has been introduced in the U.S. Because of the touch-free considerations now for retailers. We're seeing a vastly accelerated adoption rate by banks that issue those kind of cards, but also the retailers that have the acceptance terminals or the machines that need to be tapped. So we're upgrading that technology, and we're seeing a much greater use of contactless. And so that can be used with cards or with our phones or our watches. And so it's a very fast way to pay. It's a clean, touch-free way to pay, super convenient. And we find that merchants and consumers really love that technology.
Yeah. And did you say there's a second technology that's on your roadmap?
Yeah. And so while the base contactless technology is super interesting, that uses sort of the traditional cash registers and the sort of the payments devices at the merchant locations. One of the innovations we've been working on for the last couple of years and have created some industry standards around, and now are launching this year in 2021, is something called tap on phone. And so this is a new technology that's going to enable merchants to put just standard state-of-the-art smartphones in the hands of their cashiers and their hosts and their customer service agents. And it could be at significant retailers, at name brands, or even at small mom and pop shops like bakeries, coffee shops, and farmers markets. But merchants basically, as long as they have a smartphone, they can now accept payments without having to have one of those sophisticated payments devices or cash registers on their desk. So they can literally use the Android smartphone that they have today that has an NFC chip built into it. And those cards and phones and watches that I said could tap to pay can now simply tap the merchant's phone. We call this tap on phone technology. And we're testing it in a couple dozen countries around the world. We've been testing it for a couple of years, and it's going to be rolling out. We'll see it showing up in the U.S. and across most of the world in a production scale this year.
So, as a consumer, I can't wait to test and trial some of those solutions. And I'm sure that our audience of retailers, brand manufacturers are keen to test, trial, and even roll out some of those solutions too. They sound super fascinating and could really be additive to the consumer experience. Dave Glazer, Senior Vice President of Global Acceptance Solutions at Mastercard. Thanks for your time today.
You're welcome, Piers. Thanks for having me.
That's great. Thanks so much for being part of Retail Innovation Week.
You're welcome. Take care.
Hey everybody, it's Piers here. I just wanted to stop a second and remind you about the breakout sessions that start at 1 p.m. Eastern today. The breakout format is new this year for Retail Innovation Week. During the session, you'll be able to join different rooms that have concurrent conversations, and if you choose, you can leave one and enter another. Speakers at today's breakout sessions will help our community understand how retailers across a range of verticals are evolving their physical spaces in order to elevate customer support, improve shopper confidence, and encourage visits. Okay, So who's speaking at the breakouts on day one? Let's take a look. Retailers and brands can create new experiences that deliver on the buying convenience shoppers need, while also delivering the inspiration, discovery, and delight that shoppers want. Tune into this great talk at One Today to hear from leaders at Chase Design and Simpactful to Consulting and design shops shaping their future of the in-store experience. Join Val Vacanti and Kathy Sadiner for a discussion about how gaming and play are informing new business models and creating more meaningful connected brand experiences. Learn about current trends that fuse gaming and shopping, disrupted business models, emerging technologies, and what the future holds for incorporating play and gaming across brands in physical and digital worlds. Despite a pandemic-driven shift to digital orders, Target stores still fulfill about 75% of the retailer's total sales. Join Sarah Hill from Target and leaders from 3 innovative startups tackling in-store fulfillment in a discussion about the in-store fulfillment process and the role of RFID IoT and ultrasonic data in meeting changing consumer behaviors and expectations. Startups include Radar, RapAttack, and Listener. We are excited to have Trevor Sumner, CEO of Perch Interactive, return to our stage to talk about in-store engagement during times of disruption. Perch aims to reimagine in-store retail using Lyft and learn solutions to enhance product engagement. Attendees will get to explore how brands are using technology to influence shopper behavior at the shelf and discussing store as media. What Trevor says is the next frontier of content marketing. Next up is Howard Sullivan, Executive Creative Director at Your Studio, an award-winning experience design agency with offices around the world. This is going to be a great session. Join Howard for an exploration of how some of the world's pioneering brands are pivoting, repackaging, and shifting to connect with consumers in dynamic, convenient, and engaging ways. Where does a brand or retailer turn to rapidly test and learn and experiment with new retail formats? Enter the Retail Hub, a future of shopping co-creation lab being developed in Antwerp, Belgium by Jorg Snoek and his team at Retail Detail. It has, amongst its arsenal of tools, a pickup point of the future, DIY home store of the future, several different food concepts, a robotic bar, and a bottom-up fashion model. Invisible's mission is to bring objects and surfaces to life in an increasingly smart and connected world. Join Michael Robinson, COO of Invisible, as he explores an alternative to power-hungry and expensive displays in smart objects, and dig into how Invisible helps brand owners in medtech, cold chain, FMCG, and retail develop and deploy IoT products that integrate our customizable, thin, flexible, and ultra-low power printed electrochromic displays. Rick Olson, ex-director of supply chain and automation at Target, is going to share learnings from the resilient businesses that he has worked with and how they create seamless experience from back to front of house. Rick is going to pull back the curtain on his time working with Target and help you become operationally sound to address customer dissatisfaction, loss of sales, and merchant relations. What's hype versus what's here to stay? Join Rachel Shechtman later for a conversation for her take on the new business models we are going to see emerge in 2021. Also, hear her riff on her favorite content-driven commerce experiences and her take on the reimagination of in-store customer service. Next up is a conversation between Jeannie Weaver, Vice President of Retail Marketing at T&T, Prexa Graves, Director of Marketing at Nestle Starbucks Global Coffee Alliance, and Alyssa Allen, Vice President at the Integer Group. In an always-on world, consumers are increasingly interacting with brands from within their own homes. Listen to this panel as they discuss how the world's largest brands are reimagining in-home customer experience. Breakout sessions at Retail Innovation Week are a chance for our community to learn from experts with real experience in the field.
Through a mix of presentations, discussions, and Q&A, you'll get deep inside knowledge into the latest approaches around delivering effective in-store experience strategies.
See you at 1 p.m. on the stage and we'll direct you from there. Excited today to have Ben Kaufman, the founder of Camp, talk to us today about how he sees physical retail evolving and where that might go. Hey, Ben, nice to see you.
Hey, good to see you.
So, Ben, you created these amazing experiences, very amazing, engaging experiences, and obviously change has happened. Based on your experience back then, when you created these family experience centers and the digital pivot that you went through with your business. How do you see physical retail evolving in the future, whether it's at Camp or in the broader retail sector?
I think what 2020 did is it just accelerated the clarity everyone has around the role stores play. Stores can't be there for things you need anymore. Like if you know you need it or you know you want it, you're going to go ahead and buy that online, most likely. The role of a store in my mind and the way it guides our work at Camp is helping you answer the question, what should you do today? It's something to do. It's an activity. It's a place to go. It's a thing to see. It's a dynamic community hub that's there to be a ritualistic experience. I think the best retailers in the future are going to be the ones that weave into a person's schedule or a family's schedule, where you go to X, Y, and Z retailer once a week or after Sunday after soccer practice or whatever it is, and it's there to inspire you. It's there to connect you with your friends, other families, and the products you may buy there are a result of it being at the center of your community and the center of your identity. And it's no longer just price. And
so for the companies, there's obviously a lot of retailers, people who work at retailers watching this who have a large real estate investment or tied to leases. Any particular recommendation they should pursue, especially in 2021?
I think that's their magic sauce. I think that's their special superpower, and that they shouldn't shy away from it. I think the more location density you have, and the more you have the ability to serve your customer through space, is going to be a key advantage in 2021 and beyond, because you really can be a community hub and can be a place where millions of people work you into their schedule. The big question I would have for them is, what are you doing to actually serve the communities you're in? How are you programming your store? How are you keeping your store dynamic and different on a quarterly basis, or whatever cadence you want to be on, to be there in service of the community and to be there to help your customers answer the question, what should we do today? People don't want to be at home anymore. People don't want to just sit on their couch and buy things online. They want to go see things. They want to go do things. And stores can be a key answer to that question.
That's great. Helping people answer, what should we do today? I like that a lot.
That's Camp's mission. That's what we're going to be focused on for the foreseeable future.
That's great. Ben Kaufman of Camp, thanks so much. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks.
So one of the brands and retailers that we've been tracking for a while, and probably like many of you, is Lego, the Lego Group. They've been experimental, they've been ambitious, they've been baking their retail in those flagship stores that I'm sure you visited. And we've heard from speakers on the PSFK stage before about their ambitions to grow. We have Shian-Li Tsang. She's head of retail for Americas for the Lego Group, and she's going to come and join us. She's going to talk about the latest with the plans and how Lego is going to invest in physical retail to engage consumers, create better experience, and drive loyalty. Hey Shian-Li, nice to have you here on Retail Innovation Week.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
That's great. It was great to have you as part of Retail Innovation Week. It's always fascinating to kind of have a company, a brand manufacturer, retailer who's been so progressive in the past and understand what their reaction is to the current moment and what their ambition is next. I know that there has been a lot of ambition for store growth. I think we had a speaker from Lego at the previous event talk about plans to expand and create new stores. How has, obviously plans have changed and things are different. What's the kind of current feeling over at the Lego group, and what sort of direction are you thinking about taking with retail, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. Well, my retail background is really in big box retailing, with 10 years at Dick's Sporting Goods. And so there's very few manufacturer brands that I would consider joining their retail division. And I think that Lego has such a rich history in having a store footprint that was definitely compelling to me, because all the brands are trying to do direct to consumer, but they already had it as part of their ecosystem. And I think it really dovetails into that larger conversation around the Lego ecosystem, because when you think about how many places consumers and shoppers can interact with the Lego brand, whether it is in one of our stores, at a third-party retailer, where the bulk of our sales come from, at a Legoland, at a Discovery Center, and a movie theater, brands would kill for that kind of contact with consumers. And so I think for us, it's about how do we orchestrate across that entire ecosystem? Because obviously the shopper doesn't differentiate a Legoland from a Lego product they bought at another retailer. And so this year has presented some really unique challenges for us, but direct to consumer has always been a priority. And I think that, there's been a lot of learnings in 2020, but it's accelerated a lot of the things that I think would have otherwise taken quite a bit of time. And so with chaos comes change and learning. And we had to find ourselves in a much more agile position, closing stores, reopening stores, all new safety protocols, things like that. And so it didn't keep us from opening the stores in the Americas region that I represent this year. So we did open 4 stores, 3 in the US and 1 in Canada, just with a very modified opening experience, which I'm sure most retailers have had to do during this period of time. So not your typical lines down the block type of deal, more of a sustained approach to how we reach those shoppers and then balance safety, occupancy, in all different geographies and all that fun stuff.
Of course. I think obviously that with the audience, that a lot of people are dealing with that and responding to that, and how that's shifting back and forth as well. I wonder whether we could look forward to beyond, possibly will never be beyond, but to beyond the current moment, and just talk about ambitions, and in terms of what is the role of the store beyond the transactional. I think of the Lego group as a store where there was kind of a fusion, an intersection of play and commerce.
I think historically, retailers don't do brand very well, and brands don't do retail very well. And that's obviously converging and changing very quickly. And so when I think about what differentiates our stores and the kind of experiences that we're bringing to shoppers in those stores, it really came to a screeching halt this year, because the things that differentiate a Lego retail store versus buying product at a third-party retailer, it's a completely different experience. And a couple of things that sets our stores apart, makes them, differentiates them, is not just the broader and deeper assortment, but it's customer service like you're never going to experience anywhere else. Our store associates love the brand and build with the brand at home just as much as our shoppers do. And so there's that connection that you probably wouldn't get at another retailer. But then we always focused on in-store experiences, events, demo, and play. And that all came to a screeching halt this year. And so we had to come up with some creative ways to still deliver on that promise. But for me, the store is really the all the way to bright manifestation of the brand. It is the brand in its fullest 360-degree experience. For me, the product, the transaction, is the souvenir of that experience. And so when you think of the role of the store, especially as it relates to where the bulk of our sales come from with third party, our role should be congruently and simultaneously about sales, like for like traffic, increasing conversion, all of those typical retail metrics. But at the same time, it is absolutely a brand building experience. And we have research to suggest that or support that. We've got all kinds of anecdotal feedback where and when I was speaking to some of my my friends or nieces and nephews, like, what compels you to buy a product at a Lego store versus, you know, going to Target where you can use your 5% red card? And there's some bribery involved. Like, I have to go to Sephora and I've got to stop at Nordstrom. And so I've bribed my child. We will stop at the Lego store if he's good while mom's returning things to Nordstrom or wherever else. And I think in that sense, I'm being perfectly honest, we're somewhat agnostic to where folks transact. At the end of the day, we put the company hat on and it's all about, you know, growing share of wallet and penetration for the Lego brand. But if that's how someone comes in and has a great experience in the store, they end up buying the product for whatever reason at another retailer, they still have that great brand building experience at one of our stores. And so to me, those things are no longer mutually exclusive for brands that have a North Star that is both about building the brand with the store experience, but then also having that payoff of selling the product as well.
Yeah. So I think you're saying that there's less of a push and pull between channel and DTC so much, or there's a higher purpose.
There is, absolutely. And I would say that, especially coming from 10 years at Dick's Sporting Goods, where you've got, you know, countless vendors. And I was part of a lot of conversations there where we are saying, hey, XY athletic brand, your direct is eating into our comp sales. But the truth is that all tides kind of rise with some of that. And I think that we do not believe those things are mutually exclusive. And so we have a lot of experiential things in the store that would invite someone in to just come in and play. But there's, of course, we want them to convert. But at the end of the day, that sort of shared philosophy of what is best for the brand with the company hat on. And I will say that my counterparts on the America's brand team, who are responsible for, you know, selling into third-party retail, they are really sophisticated in how they look at our stores as a marketing channel, not as a competitor to their third-party retailers. And I think, to me, that's probably some of the most forward-looking sort of dynamic that happens in our conversations. They tend to spend larger amounts of money. They have bigger budgets for above-the-line TV, things like that. But orchestrating with them and saying, okay, so you have a really great media buy happening over here. How do we sequence these communications so that I can draft off of your huge above-the-line investment and then convert some folks, because we're all talking about the same thing. And so I think at other brands or even at other retailers, there's a lot more competition, or the perception of that. But my partners on the brand team in the Americas fully look at our Lego retail branded stores as marketing channels in and of themselves.
Maybe connected with that is your first airport store in Salt Lake City, you know, and you talked about a shopping scenario or a purchase journey a moment ago, but obviously within the airport, it's a different type of experience. I wonder whether you could touch upon what's driving that, any difference in experience, what goes through your head or the team's mind as they think about planning and executing that store.
Sure. I think that travel retail has been a priority for the Lego group for several years now. the US just wasn't the first set of airports to get that experience. But I think around 2017, 2018 is when they really started to go big with that bet. And with our first store opening in the Salt Lake City airport, you almost kind of wonder, well, travel's down, and do you think now's a great time to do that? But it's really interesting because I think that the ultimate mission with airport stores in the US is that in the next 2 to 5 years, we're expecting to have a major presence at all of the big airports across the US. And the reason is because in this industry, it is just an underserved category within specialty retail for travelers. And so it's an interesting place where we both capture shoppers who are buying for their children, maybe on the way home from a business trip or something like that. But then there's an entire base of adult shoppers who are buying for themselves. And so that's also an opportunity to capture those shoppers. And so just to give you an example with that Salt Lake store, the business case was built prior to COVID. And in that first week of trading, we saw sales basically meeting the forecasted sales pre-COVID. And so for us, that was just a validation that shoppers are underserved in this area. And that we definitely this is a big bet for us over the next several years.
It's been truly enjoyable having this conversation, finding out about Lego's aspirations when it comes to retail, how the Lego Group wants to engage consumers, create these rich experiences. I'm looking forward to seeing how everything manifests. Thanks for your time. Wow, what a great series of experts. They really helped us understand topic of the day, understand the different ways to kind of think about the future of retail. I hope you've enjoyed the show today. We will be releasing the whole day as a video, and you'll be able to share that with colleagues, deep dive, and so forth. And do remember there's more to come. Here's a reminder that we have a fantastic lineup of sessions coming up at 1 p.m. Eastern. Stay in this stage area. And at 1 p.m. the rooms will open up and you can visit them and learn with the following.
Yes, at 1 p.m. we'll have leaders at Chase Design and Simpactful. We'll also have Val Vacanti and Kathy Sadner, and startups from the Target Accelerator program. Also with Trevor Sumner of Perch Interactive, and Howard Sullivan of Your Studio, Katjurg Snoke, and Invisible's Michael Robinson. Rachel Shechtman will also be back at 1 p.m. to discuss her talk today. And do check this special session with execs at AT&T, Nestle, Starbucks, and the Integer Group. Breakout sessions at Retail Innovation Week are a chance for our community to learn from experts with real experience in the field. Through a mix of presentations, discussions, and Q&A, you'll get deep inside knowledge into the latest approaches around delivering effective in-store experience strategies.
See you at 1 p.m. on the stage and we'll direct you from there.
That's right, peers. We couldn't have pulled this event off without the support of our sponsors. First, we have Avalara, the leader in automated tax compliance. We've done a lot of work with Avalara over the past 12 months, and it continues the launch of a new report we are unveiling on Day 4 of Retail Innovation Week. It is called Marketplaces and the Next Generation Digital Experience, Developing an Omnichannel Marketplace Strategy. The report was the inspiration for our Marketplace Day, and we hope you download your free copy. We'd also like to thank Gladly for their support. Gladly is the only people-centered customer service platform with all the channel built in. We also want to give a shout out to our breakout sponsors. Chase Design is a world-class design firm established more than 50 years ago with over 100 employees. They work with consumer product goods companies and retailers worldwide on projects that span all shopper touchpoints, in the home, on the go, in store, and online. Our sponsors. But Real Obsess and Ridding Futures ran a session on Monday that tackled how to make the in-store experience available anywhere with AR and VR. Between them, they bring to the table technology, insights, augmented retail, and virtual shopping. We are also supported by Life Area, a full-service global customer experience and commerce agency. Their expertise lies in connecting brands and people through creative commerce experiences that transform and enliven the customer journey from start to finish. Much of what you will see on days 3 and 4 was filmed with our partner, Norbert. Norbert is a turnkey, all-in-one hardware and software solution you can deploy in hours. Thanks again to all of our sponsors for their support.
Hey, don't go away. Here's a reminder that we have a fantastic lineup of sessions coming up at 1 p.m. Eastern. Stay online and watch and learn with the following.
Yes, at 1 p.m. we'll have leaders at Chase Design and Simpactful. We'll also have Val Vacanti and Kathy Sadner, and startups from the Target Accelerator program. Also with Trevor Sumner of Perch Interactive, and Howard Sullivan of Your Studio, Katjurg Snoke, and Invisible's Michael Robinson. Rachel Shechtman will also be back at 1 p.m. to discuss her talk today. And do check this special session with execs at AT&T, Nestle, Starbucks, and the Integer Group. Breakout sessions at Retail Innovation Week are a chance for our community to learn from experts with real experience in the field. Through a mix of presentations, discussions, and Q&A, you'll get deep inside knowledge into the latest approaches around delivering effective in-store experience strategies.
See you at 1 p.m. on the stage and we'll direct you from there.